In this scenario, you'll see the principal is in the middle of executing her 90-day action plan. She's really trying hard to demonstrate shared autonomy and hold her colleagues accountable for executing their priorities. In particular, she has an academic coach who is struggling to implement the instructional framework. So she's varying the line between support and accountability to hold that academic coach accountable for school performance. You'll also see in this scenario a couple things that really stand out. She identifies her method and approach for monitoring and support, and she also identifies how she's going to give feedback throughout the 90-day plan to really support this academic coach.
So, Don, I know you've been really focusing on your 90-day action plan, and one of your priorities is your instructional framework, and your coaches are kind of struggling to really move that forward. What's your strategy for addressing that?
Darren, fortunately, we have been working with the Center for Educational Leadership, and we've been using their instructional framework. It's the five dimensions of teaching and learning instructional framework. And so I'm actually using that with my coaches to give them that instructional framework to use with the teachers. So, one of the things, as we have been doing our learning walks throughout the building, I'm really trying to coach and help my instructional coaches with the fact what we're finding out is we actually need to focus on purpose. I mean, really focusing on standards, those learning targets, and teaching points, because what we're beginning to notice is we really don't see that alignment between the standard, the learning target, the task, and really to even be a little bit more specifically around the rigor of the language of the standard. So for example, sometimes the verb may be you need to utilize, but then we go in and we see that they're doing tasks around identifying. So really trying to work with my coach and helping them to really look at those vision statements and the guiding questions around that instructional framework, so that they're looking for that language within that framework. So that's kind of where we've been starting.
And I really love your laser focus on matching the rigor of the standard with the actual lesson task. How are you walking that line, that fine line between accountability and support with your coach as she tries to really lead that?
Well, so the very first time I actually led that learning walk and then that conversation with the faculty and staff that participated in the learning walk. So the next step is I want my coach to actually be the one to lead that learning walk and come back and take them through that process. And I think if I'm able to observe her leading that work around that five dimensions, specifically the area of purpose, if I can actually observe her leading that, then after that learning walk, she and I can sit down and we can talk about, and I can give her some feedback and kind of coach her on some next steps to help her improve that process.
So as you start to employ some of this shared leadership and distributing
Mm-hmm.
these tasks, um, how do you find yourself monitoring that, or what is your approach to monitoring those expectations that you set?
Again, I think it's going to be me observing her, working with those grade level teams, doing things like working with those learning walks. I really think I need to get in there and observe her so that I can provide the feedback and hold her accountable for those expectations that we've set together. Because ultimately, I know the number one factor in student achievement is that teacher in the classroom. And the reason that I have that coach is to really work with those teachers. She's helping me with Get Better Faster right now. So she's actually going in and observing and coaching some of our teachers, especially some of our first year and induction teachers. So I've got to observe her in that process so that I can provide her that feedback and hold her accountable for those expectations that I've set for her.
And I love your use and your strategy around the holding her
Mhm.
accountable. Um, as we start to think about next steps, how are you, as you start to funnel off different tasks to
Mhm.
different team members in your building, how are you planning to continue to build this culture of accountability and high expectations?
Once again, follow up. I think it's going to be important that I observe them with their actions, that we sit down, we have a conversation. So, and even asking them, so how do you think that went? You know, what do you think you can even improve on? So, really monitoring, observing, providing that feedback, and coaching them for those next steps.
And I really enjoy your method and your strategy behind holding people accountable for school performance. And I think it's going to prove to pay dividends as we think about the end of the 90 days and how we'll kind of assess progress with the 90-day action plan. So looking forward to the results.
Great. Thanks, Darren.
Great. In that coaching session, you saw the principal do three key things. She articulated how she modeled with the academic coach by showing her the process of properly implementing the instructional framework. She also talked about her steps that she used to observe the academic coach. And lastly, she talked about the continuous feedback that she provided to the academic coach. And ultimately, what that did was that set a certain level of accountability, because now that academic coach has had a mentorship opportunity where she was able to receive that guidance to ultimately carry out her 90-day plan successfully, and also align with the school mission, which was anchored on that key word that the principal used, which was purpose. So what we saw in totality over the course of that coaching session, we saw the principal walk through the steps of holding people accountable for school performance at the very highest levels for this competency.